Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Compliance, the human impact of AUSTRAC reforms. So today we're joined by Murat Binyaza and Sean McGrath, both former financial crime leaders at National Australia Bank, and now at financial crime consultancy courses. But I'll let those guys introduce themselves in a second. Today, we're going to go beyond the technical details of OSRAC and explore what these reforms really mean and why they matter for our communities. We hope that you're going to walk away from this session with clarity on the reforms, but also a fresh perspective on what they mean and compliance purpose. And we'll give some practical ways that you can transform your approach and embed that meaningful approach across your organization. This webinar is going to run for 30 minutes in total. We will have some time for questions at the end, but if something pops up while we're going along, please do ping them through on the chat and I'll manage them. We will share this recording afterwards. And I think that's all the technical details. So I'll hand over to the speakers to introduce themselves. Murat, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll do that. In financial crime at NAB for about 12 years, I think it was, after a career in technology and being a bit of a propeller head. It left NAB with Sean and a couple of other friends, and we formed Courses Consultancy, and we've been consulting to medium to large banks, superannuation companies, even some crypto exchanges, and doing some good work for them, helping them understand what they need to look like in the future, providing transformation program delivery maps, helping them with operational efficiency so they can get through their work comfortably without stressing their people out, and helping them with their reporting and insights as well, because unless you can measure it and report on it, you can't really see what's really going on and make decisions the right way. So I've done a bit of work for a number of organisations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Murat. Sean.
Thanks. Yeah, Sean McGrath. So I spent time at NAB with Murat and the rest of the team. Had the great opportunity to form Courses a few years ago now, where we spent that time consulting into a number of areas. I've probably spent a bit more time on the tech side of the world, but given the subject matter, given the impact, and given some of the things I think we're going to talk about over the next half an hour, I really fell in love with the space and being able to kind of get up in the morning and make a difference. So really excited about all the change that we've got in this space now and everything we're doing globally. It's been a great opportunity. Really excited.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so I think, and that's important to say, we're not just talking about regulatory changes here. We're talking about protecting real people from real harm. Um, so I'll start with some of the basics though, about the actual reforms. So there's been quite a lot of confusion, I think, about what the reforms are. Could you break down what's exactly changing and when? Um,
Yeah, cool. I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, thanks, Jess. So okay, so there's the regulatory reforms. A lot of people will call it the tranche two reforms here, given we're bringing in tranche two entities. And when we say tranche two entities, we're talking about real estate agents, we're talking about lawyers and accountants, and we're talking designated services that they specifically provide. That is the biggest change, and it's one that's probably been coming for a while, and it's something that most of the other countries are already doing. It is something that Australia is lagging behind on. So we've got some good, strong learnings from. I think that's probably the first thing to say. We can kind of leverage and look at how other economies have done this and where they've been working on it. It's going live July the 1st, so we've got 12 months from this recording around the time to get ourselves ready. There are also a number of changes in that around current regulated entities, with AUSTRAC putting guidelines around simplifying the obligations and addressing a number of pain points. I think it's a really strong opportunity for everyone to look at the change and see the kind of things that we need to work on. There's a strong focus, as there has always been, on a risk-based approach and making sure we understand where these risks actually lie, where they lie for the regulated organisation, and then how we respond to them. That's probably the big tickets there.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And so, Murat, we're hearing quite a lot of mixed reactions from compliance teams. A lot of people are just going to see this as more work, more paperwork. Others see it as an opportunity. What's your take on it?
Listen, I think when you look at the real purpose of what AUSTRAC's trying to do and the regulations, it's to protect our people in our community, right? And I mean, and part of the regulations is to make sure what we see going on in organisations, we have the right risk-based methodologies there, tools there to actually help us see what's going on and um, sort of see what's suspicious and actually report it through, right? Um, so part of what needs to be, what this represents is an opportunity to simplify what we're doing, make it more effective and efficient without actually overcomplicating, which is what has probably happened in the past, because the compliance aspect of it and wanting to and need to be compliant is such a big focus for organisations, and the consequence of it can be quite severe. But really bring it back to the simple things around why we need it and understanding that we have at the forefront of everything we do and how we assess things and how we align our people to the purpose of um, executing the processes that have been designed against that risk-based approach to make sure we get the right outcomes.
Yeah, thank you. And would you have anything to add on that kind of paperwork versus opportunity, Sean?
Yeah, look, I just think change is always an opportunity. I think change is scary and change is something that's tough, right? I think every time we go through things, I have a tech background, so change is really scary. But it's also an opportunity for us to have a look. It's also an opportunity for us to say, okay, where we're making these changes, where can they make the most difference? Where can we actually look at and what are the things that we've been doing because we do them, and what are the things that and how can we change those to do them for the right outcome? So there's absolutely a compliance outcome and a regulator expectation on this, but there's also an end outcome that we're in this to do something for our people and our communities. We're in it internally to do something for our people. You know, financial crime teams over the last 10 years have exploded in terms of people and human capital and the operational nature of a lot of the work that we do and how we're going across it. And that's not lost on the community. You know, equal frustrations on both sides of the fence where we start looking at people's accounts and we start looking through their interactions where they're completely legitimate. False positives are a problem, you know, for customers as much as they are for the teams that are working through them. I think we can, if as long as we see these things as an opportunity, there's a good way to look at how we face into them and actually make a difference for the service as a whole. As you know, reforms and looking at something, change is always positive. I think we look at it as an opportunity, except that yes, it's scary and yes, it means something different, but that's something that we should face into.
Yeah, I think you mentioned there's a lot that can be learned from other people who have done this. And so like you say, yeah, this is an opportunity to kind of start afresh and think of a better way of going about things. Um, so let's come for a minute on why this actually matters. You've mentioned protecting people from real harm. Could you paint a picture of what financial crime really looks like for communities? Murat, I'll come to you on that.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Well, I mean, we all live in this world where we see things happen and we see news events around child exploitation. We see, the effects of drugs near home and, more broadly. We also see the effects of scams. We see human trafficking. So these are all happening to people that somewhere in the world we all care about directly or indirectly. And the proceeds of any of those crimes going through any of our financial institutions is not something that any of us should be able to bear. All right. At the end of the day, we're here to protect people, and we're here to protect our communities, and we're here to protect ourselves. And I think when we understand that, and the purpose of these regulations becomes really clear, the purpose of what compliance is trying to achieve isn't a compliance outcome.
Mm,
The purpose of what AUSTRAC is trying to achieve is let's protect the world we live in, right? And I think sometimes we get into the throes of work, day in, day out, going through lots of investigations day in, day out. And sometimes we lose sight of that from time to time. And we have to be reminded that the real purpose of it isn't to be compliant. The real purpose of it is to protect people with an outcome of being compliant, right? So I think the objective is to protect. The secondary outcome is to be compliant that you should strive for. If we do it the other way around, sometimes we don't do the things as well, as efficiently, as effectively, and with as much quality as we possibly could.
mm, mm. Yeah, embedding the emotion behind the outcome.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
correct.
that's it. I mean,
Exactly
it's
right.
one of the things I talked about at the start. Right? Like, it's one of the things that attracted me to this area. You can't go to a financial crime conference. You can't do it without having someone present something that just hits home. Be it, the sheer volume and numbers when we talk about, some of the predicate crimes and scams and things like that. And then when you go to some of the horrible examples of child sexual exploitation, some of the human trafficking, modern slavery, and things like that, where you think that the work that we do can have a real impact on people's lives and the way in which we
Yeah,
as kind of society exists.
exactly right.
Yeah, real human
And I
story.
think you talk, yeah, yeah. And I think I mean, we can't be ticking boxes, right? As organisations, we can't be ticking boxes. If I look at my travels at organisations we've consulted to, and places where I've worked like NAB, and one of the things that I really love doing is getting to know people, right? When you look at people doing their jobs in the AML world, um, the most effective and the best people are all those ones that actually care about protecting the community, that are really passionate about protecting the community, and really are disciplined about the work they do because they believe in that purpose. Right?
Mm,
They're the ones that do the best at their job. The
mm,
people in there doing a tick box exercise, then the quality usually drops.
mm, mm. And I think with that, with tying this back to why this actually matters, and that's the message we really want to drive home here. One of the challenges is that a lot of compliance teams are like drowning in alerts, false positives. It's quite a cluttered space. Um, so do you think the AUSTRAC reforms might address that, or do you think they're going to make that worse? Sean, do you want to take that first off?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think anyone's trying to make it worse, uh, but
Uh,
it is hard. And look, the reforms involve change, and the way in which we respond to that change will have impacts on the teams. So there are absolutely some obligations there. There are some obligations here that have become more prescriptive than they previously were. AUSTRAC's been pretty clear, and I think most regulators in this space have been pretty clear on this risk-based approach. And I think that's where we're landing on this. And when we talk about drowning in alerts and drowning in false positives, like, we work in an area where the difference between a 99% accuracy rate means that there's a hell of a lot of work in that 1% when we're looking at large customer volumes and large transactional volumes. We're never going to be perfect. There is always going to be this view, no matter what happens, that there will be a significant amount of work here. The answer is making sure we really understand why we're doing all of that work, in making sure that we do weigh up our risks, that that one of the very clear rulings here is that you must do the risk assessment. You must understand the risks of your organization for money laundering, terrorist financing, and proliferation finance. In doing that, then we should have a much better focus on making sure we spend our time, money, resources, and people on looking at the things that are highest risk. I don't think there's any expectation. I would challenge anyone that sits there and say they've got it perfect and they know exactly what they're looking for, and there's no risk. We know that in all of these sectors, ones that exist now are not regulated and the ones that will be regulated, that there is risk and that these things happen. We have examples of criminal seizures. We have police activity that is confirmed. We have criminals behind bar that will attest to these are all the ways in which we did this.
mm,
So we know it exists. We know it's there. We know it's our obligation to look for it. We have to focus on what matters most, and that is not getting through a queue of alerts to get through a queue of alerts.
mm, mm, mm.
But that does mean that we have to make sure we really understand that and do the work that we need to do. So yeah, once again, I go back to, look, I wouldn't say it's a driver of the change in regulations, but like that change does give you an opportunity to then relook at your risk, relook at your focus, and make sure that we're spending a lot of money in the right areas and making sure that we're protecting our organisation, our people, and our communities from all the things that we've talked about
Yeah.
previously.
Right.
And can I add, just around, the drowning in the alerts and false positives? I mean, there is technology out there. I mean, we're all talking about AI and the rise of AI. And with a lot of organizations, they look at shiny toys that can solve their problem like it's a silver bullet, right? There is no system that is a silver bullet. You need your people to be making the right decisions at the right time based on what their systems give them. And I think some of the tools that sort of make a difference are tools like Zapier, where the enhanced due diligence can be cut down from hours or days sometimes where it's really complex down to 15 minutes for Zapier to bring you back a report about the risk someone might present.
Mm.
So there are ways of using technology together with people and training them the right way to actually reduce those alert volumes down. But the decisions of our people are important, and the quality decisions of our people, more importantly, is what feeds these systems, these AI engines and machine learning engines to make the right recommendations to our people for them to decide on. And as that goes, the AI systems and the machine learning systems that produce those alerts will learn more about what to ignore and what to produce as a decision-making event.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think as you were saying, Sean, there's a lot, it feels like the emphasis should be on the risk assessment up front. If you know your risk, then you know where to lay your resources. And I guess what you were suggesting, Murat, is that our technologies now that can help understand that risk better. But ultimately, it's going to be the human
Correct.
has to make the decision as to what we do about that. Um,
Correct.
yeah, helpful. Thank you. Um, and this is kind of one for both of you. And you've worked with a lot of organizations now making this transition. So what what does it look like when a compliance team shifts from making compliance an obligation to a mission? Sean, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and put my hand on my heart and say every organisation we work with has changed it to a mission. Um, but I think everyone that we've worked with has understood that that's kind of where we'd like to take people. Hopefully when we walk in, we're passionate about this space, and like to think that most people working in the space are passionate about it and understand intuitively that we're trying to do a good thing here and that this is good for our community. I think what I would say is it's the connectivity between teams. So I have said on occasion that I won't be held to account for that, sometimes we do risk for risk's sake and we go through the process and we go through the motions. I think where I've seen organizations be really successful about facing into specifically this area, but really managing their risk as a whole, as a discipline, is where you're connected to the outcomes that policies and programs understand and are responsive to the operational challenges of the people that will actually take them out. So I've always taken a view in these spaces that we take a bottom-up approach. You always listen to the people that are doing the work. You go from your customers telling you what they're experiencing from this, be it good customer experiences and bad customer experiences, and good customers and bad customers. Understanding what that means, and understand the people that deal with them every day and deal with the work every day. And making sure that's flowing through into the decisions you're making when you both understand your risk, as we've mentioned a few times now, but then translate that into your processes and procedures, your obligations, and making sure, you get the breadth and your coverage, but you also get the depth from people that are doing the work and they're doing it for you. They wear, your organization's colors. They understand how work happens here. And that's the the connectivity that I would talk to, where people are doing this in, let's say, better practice, and understanding where their decisions lie and where to move that marker. There's not an unlimited pool of funds to manage that risk, and there's not, there's not an appetite to do nothing. We've got to make sure we understand in that spectrum of decisions where's the right place to make the decision based on how we understand the risk, based on the evidence, based on the data and metrics that we're collecting, and being open to changing that, being open to looking at that and saying, hey, actually, the world's changed, our environment's changed. We've got different products, we've got different services now. People are using our service differently. Let's have another look at our risk assessment here, because we're seeing things differently, and maybe we need to respond to them differently again. I think that's where I've seen it the best. It's where it's connected and it's understood. The wheels of corporate sometimes move slowly, but being connected, understanding what's actually happening on the ground all the way through, I think that makes just a better environment to work in, a better environment for outcome.
Yeah, thank you, Murat. Anything to add on that?
Well, so I think as far as the sort of changes we probably need to see, and some organisations do it well, some organisations don't. But we can get trapped in that operational wheel and really focus on metrics all the time. And the metrics are important because they give you insights into what's going on in your organisation. But really connecting those metrics and those conversations around those insights to your people and their purpose. Again, we come back to the reason why we're here is to make sure we protect people in their community. And sometimes sharing some things that are some news that has stopped something from happening, busted a drone ring or whatever it is with your people, and connecting it back into some of your insights and your metrics, and connecting your people to that outcome. Because at the end of the day, one organisation is part of a network of many organisations that provide data into AUSTRAC, that AUSTRAC and the AFP work together on to use as information to find these nefarious individuals and try and bust these rings. Right. So being able to connect those things continually reinforces that purpose for people who are working at the coalface of protecting our people with AML investigations. I think the other thing that's really important is to get the best out of your people and to ensure they've got the right capabilities. You need to have the right training around the way they conduct their investigations, the processes they follow, why they're doing it, etc. And some of the training that we've seen in the past is very boring. You read it, and then what happens is, have you gone through reading what the AML Act and what it means, and and the risks for your organisation? Yes, tick. Now you know what you're doing, right? But you've got to really assess and make it immersive and make sure that it's role specific, so that people get the best out of it and understand why they're doing what they're doing, how their role fits into the overall picture.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's a change management piece, really, isn't it? But
exactly right. It's all about people. It's always all about people.
Yeah. So we have got one question which I'll come to in a second. But I also just want to get some practical steps out of this for some of the people listening. So maybe Sean, I'll come to you first. If you were to give a couple of practical steps that people could take away from this, for how they can embed this purpose-driven approach to AUSTRAC reforms in their organization, what would you say?
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we've just gone to change management, so I'll go there first. I mean, nothing changes if nothing changes. So change is a good thing. Change is something to embrace. Whatever spectrum you sit in this industry, this is a great opportunity to take a step back, to make sure we understand what we've been doing and why we've been doing it, and make sure we move forward from there. In doing that, the first thing to do is 100% the risk assessment. Make sure you understand your risk and then respond to them. if at any stage it is perfectly fine to come back and say, you know what, I don't think we quite captured that risk properly. We didn't capture it at the detail that mattered. It's a big risk, and we actually need to break down our responses in a different way. We need to look at it differently. That's what a great thing to say, to be able to relitigate your thinking from the start to show that you understand it. You're going to move into that. Don't do it for all of them if you don't have to. Do it for the ones that really matter. Do it for the ones that maybe you don't have a grasp on it. Engage the organization, right? Like, so, there are a whole bunch of spaces in, I used to sit there, I come from a tech background. I used to think that technology was connected to everything in a business. And then I moved to financial crime. And there is nothing that happens at any of the organizations now under the regulations without customers or without transactions. And so we're in the middle of everything. If you're in this, you're in the middle of everything. So that means, you're connected to every team, be it, your frontline, your sales people, your marketing people. We could talk for hours around data and all the challenges that everyone's had on data. It's customer and transactional data that everyone uses, from your collections through your marketing, through your sales guys. So the better quality it is, the better it is for everyone. So for me, it's about making sure we know where the start is. Start at the start, do your risk assessment. Don't be afraid to spend the time in doing that properly, because it will really help you. The most impactful changes you can make to organizations that are already on this path is relooking at the start to make sure that's where we got when we got to the end. Sometimes, like all things, we get stuck in the mechanics of the middle. We set out to do this. We ended up doing this. Does this help this? That's kind of where my head's at.
Mm, mm. Yeah, really helpful. So risk assessment and engaging the organization. And anything to add on that from you, Murat?
Obviously, I think Sean's spot on the money with the risk assessment. Everything comes from that, right? And that also helps form your AML program as well. And together with how you, with the risks that your organisation perceives, your program comes together. It's also really important that the program and what you do operationally link up.
Mm.
Right? So your program will tell you what processes you need to execute for what outcome. You've got to measure them so that you understand how well you're doing, both from an effectiveness and efficiency point of view and a quality point of view, right? And quality assurance is really important in an operational framework. So once you've been able to link up your program all the way down to your processes and the people executing those processes to your KRIs and KPIs, you've got a language that is common between your risk assessment to your program all the way down to your most junior of investigators. They're all talking the same language. They're all producing results that they can all talk about through the metrics and the insights that are produced. So that linkage between risk assessment to your program all the way down to the process you execute operationally is really key, and measuring those things so that you are keeping that language alive between your junior analysts, investigators, all the way to your executives through your risk reporting.
Brilliant, thank you. That speaks to that whole behavioral change piece, I think, throughout the organization. We've got 1 minute, but we've had loads of questions through. So I think I'm going to group a couple. One is around the legal sector and property firms as well. And there's been a lot of, in the UK at least, there have been a lot of fines for AML breaches. What's the culture like in Australia in terms of AML, the legal and property sectors? Sean, you're nodding. I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Far be it for me to speak to other organisations' culture. I think, look, there's been some really strong work in preparing for the regs. Like I said, we've got 12 months to go to be compliant, not to start. I think that there's a little bit of anxiety around some of the timelines that are placed, which is rightly placed. There's a guidance that AUSTRAC's scheduled to come out with in December. My strong guidance to anyone is not to wait for that. It would be to start those conversations around the risk assessment is a logical place to start, and understanding what this means and what it looks like. there's been some really good discussions for quite a long time now, and it kind of feels like we've been waiting for this, at least in industry. And I know from uh, you know a lot of the larger legal and real estate organisations have done a lot of prep, a lot of understanding, a lot of consultation. I think AUSTRAC's probably learnt just as much as everyone else in terms of how they've rolled this out, and some of the engagement with the industry has been really good. So look, I think it's going to be an exciting time. There's lots of work to do, especially against the newly regulated industries, in understanding how everything hangs together. I think December is a good little stage point, but for anyone listening and anyone looking at this, don't wait for that. It's we've got the time now. It's amazing how time evaporates, and especially understand friends in real estate. There's some peaks and troughs in this market, so you want to make sure you get ahead of that before peak sales season comes along.
Thank you. Okay, we're 1 minute over, so I am going to wrap up. I think we'll respond to some of the other questions on email, and actually one of them is about the kind of business impact and how to remain competitive in this environment. So actually, it's probably timely to mention our next webinar, which will be on the 10th of July, where we're going to talk about like different technologies and human expertise and how that can help to solve this problem. So please do sign up to that one as well. Thank you both so much. A couple of key things I think everyone needs to mark their diaries for 1st of July, nearly a year, nearly 12 months off. Focus on seeing this as an opportunity, simplifying the approach, but also really embedding why this matters across the team. And that's going to lead to the effectiveness of it, basically. That's at the core. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Murat. Thank you to all of our attendees.
Thank you.
We will see you on the 10th of July, then on August 7th. And if you have any further questions, the email is comms, comms, @zapier.com. Thanks, guys.